So welcome to DPR. It's really cool to have you here. And this topic, of course, is very interesting to me and obviously to all of you. So we're going to talk about quality and lean. And we're going to look back. We're going to look back at some of the history of how this came to be. And we have Vic Ortiz here that has been part of this community since the beginning and has a lot of stories and a lot of knowledge. And I'm super, super thankful to be able to present with him and share a little bit about the things that we do here at DPR and how we connect with the history of lean. Vic, you want to say something else about you?
Well, that was pretty darn good. If I can live up to that, that'll be great. Just so you know, I started with lean about 10 years before it was lean. And met Greg Howell and Glenn Ballard back in the early 80s. And we went off, Glenn joined a company that I was with called Interaction Associates. We went off and worked with the automobile company right at the peak of when Toyota and Honda were kicking everybody's butt. They were taking market share, they were superior quality, they had better features in their vehicles. And we were all pretty freaked out in this country, all three, the big three and people in Europe. And the question is, what the heck are they doing? How are they doing this? So I'll say a little more about that. But it was really at the height of getting our heads around how differently operations could be managed, what a different mindset there was about operations. And that was also, as we'll see, the time for the development of what was called at that time total quality management. We'll talk about that. It was a big, big movement. So I'm really happy to be here. I love this topic, and let's do the things we have to do to get this started.
Yes. Let's acknowledge all our sponsors. So thank you so much to all our sponsors for making these events and to keep the community of practice of the Lean Construction Institute very active. We're one of the most active ones. We want to be the best one after this event, right? We have our LinkedIn page. So if you have not joined us, join the LCI also email list so you know when events are coming, when it's Congress, all those good things. We have a live plus Delta for the duration of the whole session, so please take your phones and look at this QR code, and you can start right now giving us plus and Delta. So fun fact, Vic is one of the people that started the idea of doing plus and Delta in this community. So plus is something that you like, you want to keep doing, and Delta is something you would like to change next time. All right. If you're not a sponsor and you want to become a sponsor, this is the price for the whole year, and you get 3 complimentary registrations to all LCI NorCal events for every event. You also have your name feature. You get event invitations and your company logo on the slideshows. So if you haven't, make sure you do. We do have training opportunities and upcoming events. This is the last one in person. We have a webinar in December too, which is also Celine Gomez is going to be presenting. She's a DPR employee too, expert in psychological safety, so that's going to be really good. And we have also some webinars coming in different topics that the dates are not fixed yet, but you can see there, those are the topics. And with that, we can move to our topic for today. So, we want to look back to look forward. And this is some of the things that we're going to be doing. We're done with announcements, and we're good on time. So I'm going to pass the baton to Vic so he can talk about lean and quality.
Right. So one of the things that we teach about leadership in the high performance leadership workshop that we have been putting on for the last couple of years is that if you don't know where you're going, and you don't have a plan to get there, the chances of getting there are pretty darn low, right? So we always want to have an agenda, and we want to go through and see if this looks like it's going to touch on some things that you want to get out of this. I can say as fair warning that the whole concept and the topic of quality is vast. So you're not going to learn everything about quality and every statistical process and so on tonight, but we want to really get you interested in thinking about the connection between lean and quality, where the whole quality movement came from, how we've grown with it, and where this is all going. Okay, so that's generally where we're going. So we're done with announcements. We're going to talk about the transformational concepts that happened with lean, and we are going to do some breakouts and discussion after we've gone over some of these key concepts to have you noodle about what you think these concepts would do to your understanding of lean in your projects. We're going to come back and talk about something that's very famous, which is W. Edward Deming's 14 points. And then Paz is going to be talking about a whole bunch of examples of how those 14 points are being put into action in DPR. All right? So it's alive and well here. All right? Okay, so that sound like a good place to go? Good use of your time tonight?
Awesome.
Great, all righty. So, which came first? The lean chicken or the quality egg? Okay. So how would you answer that? What's your understanding of the relationship of lean and quality? Take a chance. Give it your best shot.
I'm gonna say humans have probably always cared on some level about the quality of the things they create. So I'm gonna say that was first, and lean emerged as a way to help achieve it.
Okay. All right.
I would venture to say that quality was subjective before. It was depending on one's opinions about the results. And objective quality was more linked to lean and protocol and processes to get to real quality results.
Okay. All right. So there's always been a concern, but it was more subjective, we're saying. What other thoughts? Anything else? So your construction, folks. Let's say that it's, 800 years ago, and we're building over several generations of our family's Notre Dame Cathedral. How do you think quality was managed back in those days? No computers, no lasers. Was it subjective, or were there some objective ways of measuring quality?
The trades, the European trades, for example,
Okay.
they had a close attachment to quality and pride and passion for the trades.
Okay, so if you were a stonemason building the facade of this thing, or a sculptor building something that was a frieze that was going to go over a door or something like that, what do you think would be the measure of quality? What would happen?
Probably what you did before, or what your dad did before that, what your grandfather did before that. Things didn't change very fast.
Okay, well, those would be ways that the trade was going along. If you're a stonemason, what is a good quality stone?
Alignment of joints, verticality, plumb level.
Exactly. It fits, right? There was a set of specifications. And the nice thing about this was as you went from stone to stone, you could make adjustments. If something was a little bit off, you could tweak. And so the interdependence in stone were there. So I think this is really a key point. All through history, we have, as human beings, been trying to figure out how to make things better, easier, more functional, more beautiful at times, right? That's in our spirit. That's our creative essence that is always working with us. So that's always been going on. But there's been a change. So I want to suggest that the interest in quality has been going on a long time. But lean is something more recent. Now, is lean different than quality? How? How is it different, if it is? Well, with that thundering response, I would say we're on to the right topic here, right? Because I think it's really important. There's some things that are important to understand about that. So I think that the quality egg hatched the lean chicken, I would say. Okay, so here's a bit of a timeline. I'm not going back to Notre Dame or before, or who designed the caves that we lived in millennia ago. So this is very high level, but if we're thinking about what began to change us to think about quality more systematically, it was the Industrial Revolution. And we began building ships, and that was even before 1400s. So it starts in the Renaissance, the Age of Enlightenment. But then by the time we get to the Industrial Revolution, things really start going. And so this guy pops on the scene called Frederick Taylor. Who's heard of Frederick Taylor? Okay, only a few of you, okay. Well, his ghost is in every project that you're on, I would say, all right? Frederick Taylor's idea was what was called at the time scientific management. And if you think of early Ford with the production systems and the production lines, one person doing the same job over and over and over again, you'd think they'd get pretty good at it, right? So the focus here was optimizing each operation. And it was kind of a divide and conquer. If you get a whole lot of people doing what they do right, the product's got to end up perfect, right? Why not? Why doesn't it end up perfect?
Mistakes can be repeated.
Pardon?
Mistakes can be repeated.
Yeah, if there's something wrong, mistakes can be repeated. It's not focused on the larger flow of things. So this arrow continues up to the present because this kind of thinking is going on all the time. If you're working on a design, bid, build project, and you're having separate contracts for separate trades, you're working in an ancient kind of way of working, where the trades, the means and methods of production are up to the trades, and they do their thing, and it's all supposed to work, and all we need is a contract that we can beat them on the head with, and the schedule that we can beat them on the head with, and they're supposed to do that. So that's still alive and well. So around 1945, we begin to specialize more in management. What we start building is bureaucracy. And so what we get is the growth of professional project controls. So PMBOK, the Project Management Institute, the development of people who are schedulers and designers and who are auditing and checking and so on. We start taking this idea that each of the trades can do its own thing, and we start layering. If something new needs to be done, we create a new profession for it, and we start layering things so that the decisions that are being made are no longer close to the field and close to the people who know and are doing the work. They're being elevated up to higher levels. And the people who actually produce something, if we read Todd Zabel's new book called Built to Fail, the people who are doing the work are getting paid relatively less than the people in the bureaucracy up above, right? And decisions are being further and further removed from the work phase. So this is around 1940, 1945. What's going on in the world at that time? World War II, right? World War II ends, we've dropped the bomb, things are over, and Japan is a real potential powerhouse for getting all kinds of goods made and so on. So the United States starts sending, just like we were doing in Europe with rebuilding Europe, we send help to Japan. And we send a couple of people who are statistical wizards and know about and been studying production. And we send W. Edwards Deming and Joseph Durand? Anyway, they go and they start working with the auto industry with production, and they start revolutionizing it. And the Japanese come to the United States, look at what was going on at Ford and elsewhere, and realize that they don't have any space for these huge factories. They don't have any space for lots full of cars that they haven't sold yet. And they start thinking about how can we make things more efficiently? How can we build right to a customer's specifications? And they start changing things. and they develop ways of doing things very fast and responding to needs and responding to new technology much faster. Well, we're busy working in huge batches of things that are in a lot and they get moved to another lot, and we're trying to sell them by incentivizing dealers to sell cars that aren't selling. And we've added a whole lot of what we would call waste now. So Toyota and Honda start adopting Deming's principles of how to manage, and Toyota dominates, and Deming comes back to the States, and people start getting interested in how does he do what he does, and they start talking about total quality management. Now, this is not just quality control or quality inspection or built-in quality. Total quality management arises because Deming gets back and finds out that no matter how brilliant the very technical processes are of improving quality, he can't get people to budge. He can't get people to go along. And he realizes that there's a big culture barrier. This doesn't sound familiar, does it, when we're in lean? There's a big culture barrier to getting people to really start caring about quality. So he starts total quality management. He starts working with Ford, Don Peterson at Ford, and things start improving. And I was part of that whole effort. Then comes the chip manufacturing business. And the chip manufacturing business is now making millions and millions and millions of chips. And they need their processes so tight that their goal is 1 error in 1 million products, which obviously we don't do that in construction, they don't do that in cars. That was where Six Sigma came from. And one of the interesting things is that TQM sort of got eclipsed behind Six Sigma because Six Sigma sounded sexy. And you could get to 0 errors or 1 in 1 million errors. And behind this came a huge bureaucracy of checking people to see if they were up to ISO standards. And there was a whole set of standards and everything. And this idea of continuous improvement that Deming had introduced kind of started getting buried in a bureaucracy of checking. I remember working at Modern Engineering in Warren, Michigan back in the 80s. And in order to keep their ISO status so they could supply the auto industry, one of the questions that they were asked when the inspectors came in was, how long have you been using this process? And if it was less than 3 months, it was not considered an approved process because you didn't have time to approve it. So here we've set up something to improve quality, and when these people have made a change and made an improvement, they get dinged for improving their process. Right? So one of the lessons to learn from this phase is that any good idea can be trashed with a whole bunch of bureaucracy and stuff piled on top of it. And so people say, well, TQM died, it became Six Sigma, and then it became ISO, and da. Okay. TQM has not died. If the principles that they were teaching are as true then, they're true today, that means they're not dead. We just may be oblivious to them. Okay? So what happens here? Lean manufacturing starts. Lean based on books written about what was going on at Toyota and all of those. And out of that, we start thinking, well, how, if it works in the production environment in the factory, how do we do it in the field? Glenn and Greg go out and start researching and trying to figure out what really controls what people do in the field. Okay? And then sometime more recently, a book called Factory Physics gets published, which is a real scientific approach to understanding operational performance. And we start applying that to lean as well, and to lean construction. Okay? So that's a quick timeline here. I guess not as quick as we planned.
Yeah.
All right. W. Edwards Deming. How many of you have heard of him? What's he famous for? Well, helped Japan, right? Have you heard of the PDCA cycle? Plan, do, check, act, or plan, do, check, adjust, right? That's the guy who invented it. Mathematician, born in 1900, died in 93, MIT mathematician, statistician, very technical guy who comes around and figures out that all the technical stuff doesn't work if people won't do it, and people won't do it unless there's leadership and commitment and so on. So he's the father also of what's called statistical process control. How many people have heard of statistical process control? Wow, okay. We'll talk about what that is. I'll give you a simple example of that. And as the father, one of the two fathers of total quality management, he realizes he has to develop a whole management method in order to get this stuff to stick. So he comes up with two things. One, what he calls a system of profound knowledge, and the second is Deming's 14 points. And you get to visit with those tonight, all right? When I started working at Ford in 1983, and we were just getting our heads around how profound a change we needed to make in the way Ford operated, Deming was working with Don Peterson, the CEO of Ford, and I would go from the design center where I was housed over next door to the body engineering center. This is like separate construction trailers, but huge, right? And they had a massive cafeteria in there, and on the walls every lunch, there were videos of Deming's lectures going on. So I got to sit and eat whatever I was eating there and just absorb Deming. So we're going to compare here a little bit some things about the 6 tenets of lean. Everybody should be familiar with this if you've been around LCI. But I want to point out that one of the key phrases sort of gets buried in here, which is that lean, pure lean, is an operations strategy. In other words, it's a set of principles, behaviors, things you can do and measure and put in place that will make your operations much more productive, much less wasteful, produce higher quality, and so on. So lean was really a bunch of quality principles that got focused on by Japan, getting rid of waste, having rapid, agile production, and so on. And that's really where lean came from. And of course, that fit us because we need to be agile and we have a lot of variation. All right? So I would say that respect for people was not really central to what lean talked about. If you read The Machine That Changed the World and you read some of the early books, you read Jeff Leiker, this is sort of like the difference between Japanese culture, where this was endemic, and American culture was all individual, and we each do our own thing and rise to our own level. And we have had to do the same thing Deming had to do. We've had to go back and say, well, it's not just all technology, it's also people and a lot of other things. All right. So here is something that this language may sound odd because Deming, being born in 1900, spoke using words that we don't use much anymore. But and if I could, I would try to mimic his voice, because if you listen to him, and you should listen to him on videos, he was kind of gruff, and his upper lip never moved when he spoke. It was kind of interesting, and he gave lots of lectures, and he came up with this system of profound knowledge. What the hell does that have to do with SPC and Plan, Do, Check, Act, and so on? Again, what he was finding was that there was much more we needed to understand than just PDCA. So first thing, 4 parts of this. And I would like to ask you to listen and think about this as I talk about it, because we're going to break you into groups in a little while. I can see some of you have been sitting enough already with a little wine. And we're going to talk about these different 4 elements and ask you to talk and think about how these fit with lean and the projects you're working on. What relevance might they have, okay? And I realize some of the language is a little new. So the very first thing is this idea of an appreciation for a system. Okay. A system? How do you appreciate a system? You've done a very nice job, system. Thank you. I appreciate you. What does that mean? So we're going to take each of these and break them down. So which of those things in the previous slide here might have to do with appreciation for a system? You look at the 6 regular tenets. Pardon? Yeah, this is the kind of the obvious one. We've had to say, because again, the old design bid build contracts say that the means and methods are up to each contractor. You know, we figure they know what they're doing. Then nobody talks with each other, and so the expectations are all off and everything gets out of line. So this idea of optimizing the whole, well, if you don't know what the whole is, how are you going to optimize it? You got to have some way of conceiving the whole. Okay. So he's saying what we need to do is have whole systems thinking, right? We need to think about how everything fits together in this complex interaction that we have in construction. The second thing is once you're able to describe what you think is happening and how things are supposed to work, you have to be able to understand variation. We'll talk about that. So the idea is how do we get these systems, these processes under control? Then there is, again, something you don't think of with somebody from MIT, a theory of knowledge. He's talking about how to systematically understanding how people learn and improve. And finally, psychology? Yep. Deming once said the most important thing for a manager to understand is psychology. And this is a guy who works at MIT teaching mathematical systems.
What is your degree?
Oh. So I've always sort of liked him saying that. So
He's a psychologist.
what he's talking about here is that it's important to understand individual differences and motivation. Because if you're trying to change things, you have to understand motivation. So let's look at each of these in a little bit more detail. And as we talk about these, try to put this back into, so what does this mean for my project? What are we missing? What might we get out of this? So the idea, first of all, to just define a system. Systems are big bunches of things that get something done. And you can think of in your own organization, what are some of the major systems you got, just like within your construction, your engineering company and so on. I think a dollar sign, what system is that?
Accounting.
Okay, accounting. Now, is accounting part of something bigger?
Yeah.
How many other kinds of, so I would suggest that there's systems and there's subsystems. So accounting might be a subsystem as well as billing, as well as investing and so on, of a financial management system, right? So, and if you look at your actual project management, there's hiring and there's billing and there's tracking and there's all kinds of things that are subsystems of systems. So your overall system, your enterprise is a big system. All right, so a system has subsystems, subsystems have processes, processes have activities, so we're kind of breaking it all down. The question is, how do they all fit together and to what purpose, right? And then Deming notes that a system cannot manage itself. It has to be managed by someone. And if we try to manage them by themselves, components become selfish. Some of the language we're going to use might sound a little harsh. And that's because Deming was harsh in the way he talked about this. We're using some of his language. Components become selfish, competitive, independent profit centers that destroy the system, was what he saw when people didn't appreciate how everything had to get together, okay? So is there anything, just thinking to yourself, is there anything about how we understand or don't understand how things fit together that affects your projects and the work that you do? Okay. Knowledge about variation, all right? So I'm certainly not an MIT mathematician or statistician, but Deming said some fairly basic things. Any process or system that we have should have some kind of target line of what we're trying to produce. And that target line of what we're trying to produce should fit between some kind of an upper and lower level of performance. So we call these control limits. If we've got a system or a process in control, we should be able to define how we think it's supposed to perform. And if we know how it's supposed to perform, we should be able to look at how is it working. Okay? Deming said that one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that they work real hard at controlling variation within the control limits. But if you've defined what your product is and how it's going to perform, you don't have to worry too much about slight variations, as long as they're within the spec of what it takes to fit together when it actually gets out in the field and has to be placed. What you should look at is not these normal types of normal causes of variation. Said you got to look for special causes of variation, things that really throw it out. So he found that a lot of people hadn't really defined their systems well enough to know when things are going off the rails, right? So he wanted to eliminate special causes of variation and then continuously improve the normal causes so that you could narrow the specs here. You could narrow the controls, right? That's what he's talking about with understanding variation. So let me ask you, last planner system, how many of you use last planner system? Okay, virtually everybody. What is the expected performance in the last planner system of your weekly work plan? 100%? How many people would go for that 100%? All right. Somebody has a different idea?
85%.
Okay, good. Let's dispel a myth here very quickly. All right. It's 100%. You want 100% PPC every time. And people have said, well, if you get up to 85, that's great. This is a great example of a pure lean concept that has gotten bastardized with us. What we want is to remove variation and variability from the system. That means that we're trying to target doing what we say we will do, and we're trying to perfect a system so we can do what we say we're going to do. Now, we know there's variation in here, all right? The thing that was supposed to be 85% was your capacity utilization. Make sure you don't put anything on the work plan that you haven't looked at the constraints, you haven't gotten anything, you haven't got it so that it's doable. And then book only 85 to 90% of your capacity so that when things go normally wrong, you've got extra people. So that's a thing that's often really misunderstood. So the 85% has to do with creating a little capacity buffer in your people and your process so that you can be sure to get 100%. Because if everybody has 85% only, when you put that all together, what does that do to your variation? You have all of the multiplier effects of everybody doing 15% screwed up with something else that could be screwed up, and you got a huge out-of-control system, right? So if you get nothing else out of tonight, that's at least one thing to take away. Okay, so that's variation.
Vic, we need to go faster.
Yep, okay, thanks. All right, theory of knowledge. Basically what he's thinking here is he's trying to teach people how to think. And he says some simple points. He says, management is prediction. When we are doing last planner, we are predicting what's going to happen. It has to be based on some kind of theory about how things work, about how the future will be. Without theory, there's nothing to revise. So you have to have some way of thinking about it. Greg Howell wrote a paper way back when he and Glenn had decided that the PMI system didn't adequately control projects, or we wouldn't have all these late and over budget projects. He said there's no theory of project management. There's books written about what to do, all these activities, there's no real theory about that. So without a theory, there's nothing to continuously improve. You have to be expecting and guessing what's going to happen when you try something. Statistical process control provides data against which you can test the performance of your prediction. And he says data, how many have you heard somebody say, we want to have data-driven decisions? Right, heard that? Okay, that's nice, but he points out data is not information. Data is just numbers, statistics, facts, and so on. You have to make sense out of it. So data is not information. Information is not understanding. Understanding is not knowledge, and knowledge is not wisdom. You have to be able to understand how to do the data, and you have to be able to think about what you're trying to do so you have something to measure. And finally, he says, again, knowledge comes from theory. Okay, so you have to be able to check against your predictions of what's going to happen. We do that every week in the last planner system if you do weekly work plans. We are predicting what we're going to get done, we're checking against it, and we're holding ourselves accountable and then trying to improve. Okay, final. Last thing he talks about here is about motivation. Deming seemed pretty radical about this. He said the most important thing is to understand psychology, but he said there are both internal, intrinsic motivations, external, which are like rewards and things from the outside. And he said one is born with a need for relationships, a need for love, and esteem by others. That sounds like an MIT mathematician, doesn't it? Right? People are different. They learn at different speeds in different ways. Reliance on external rewards undermines intrinsic joy of work and learning. In other words, if you reward too much, people will start thinking, well, it's all about the rewards, and they start doing what they can to do the rewards instead of doing what they can to do excellent work and be their best. Okay? So he says managers have got to understand what's important to individuals in their team, and rating and ranking performances is harmful and wasteful. He was against doing annual performance reviews. He thought if you get everybody working on how to make the system work, your production will get better, people will feel better, you'll have time to do training and develop people, and things will work better. Okay? So that is Deming's system of profound knowledge. And when I read that stuff, my little mind went, this is cool. This is a guy who thinks differently and can back it up. All right. Okay, now some people are standing in the back. We would like you, this will take a little initiative on your part, we'd like you to stand up and find 3 other people. It could be at your table, it could be anywhere. I'll give you the instructions, and then what we're going to ask you to do is we've got these are the 4 elements of profound knowledge. We want you to take a couple of minutes before we break into the groups and just think quietly for a sec. What about what we just talked about hit you? What struck you as being, oh my God, wow, got to think about that one. Okay? So if you would, let's start with that. Take a minute or so. Just think to yourself, jot a note if you want, because you're going to be sharing kind of what struck you with other people as they are sharing what struck them. Okay? Take a moment. All right. Everybody got something? Sure. If you would, we're going to take about 7 or 8 minutes, find 4 people, and each of you take a turn and just share, never heard of this stuff, that's kind of interesting, I'd like to find out more, or I really like this idea of the system, or whatever it is. So here are the 4 to remind you. We'll call you back in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Who wants to share a little bit, takeaway of the discussion? What was something that really called your attention, something you haven't thought about it in a while, maybe? Any volunteers? If not, I'm going to call on people I know. Okay, here.
So one of them was appreciation for the system, so just kind of understanding, from start to finish on a project, and then identifying, everyone's roles and how important it is to optimize the whole, right? Just looking at everything and seeing how it's related, and practicing that, and then also sharing that with other individuals who may not really understand how the system works. And then we also tapped into psychology, where really just understanding what people's passions are. And it could be a generational thing, or it could be, somebody just out of college, but then trying to find that balance in where you're able to inspire them on whether it's just basic work ethic or just really understanding how important their role is on the project. So that's
Great
that
point.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Great.
So we talked about number 2, about the knowledge about variation processes. And the thing that we came to the conclusion that we're all human, but we are actually those variations as we come together as a team, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to get that process under control, you have to manage the differences between the people on your team and figure out how to leverage that.
It's a good, interesting idea. Yeah.
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 And really important that
Yeah.
managing those differences means appreciating and finding out what each one has to offer. One of my pet peeves in a meeting is when somebody comes up with an idea and they say, "Oh, interesting, Vic. Next, Sherry, what did you know? Well, what happened to my idea?" It's,
Good.
all right.
Okay. Anything else?
Yep. Anyone else want to? Any last insights? We're going to forge ahead.
You ready for more?
All right.
Like,
What
when
more?
you talk about 100% PPC, like, it just, like, some part of that really, like, bugs me. Is it, as you, like, you think about people's motivations, their, like, the knowledge of the system, the best way to get 100% PP is never make a commitment that takes any risk whatsoever, right? Like, and, like, there's always a psychological thing to, like, are we really, if we're really just trying to hit 100% PPC, that's pretty easy. Like, I can just make only promises that I know I can commit to without all the variation behind me of the team that I'm supporting or the resources I'm trying to get or whatever that is. Like, psychology, man, I thought number 4 was the most interesting about the psychology of the system, like, and then the people inside the system, like, is super important because understanding all those, like, the different players in any one given system is really just a bunch of humans.
Yeah.
Is like, what are they willing to do? Who's willing to take risk? Who's not willing to take risk? Who's sandbagging, honestly, and who's not? And like, and then understand the system enough to know where is my weakest link in the system, and so that there's where I can spend my time and improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you on like people can game any metric, any system, right?
Right.
A lot of projects will actually do a measurement of the commitment levels, right? Because you compare it to the last planner system, you look at your process and what needs to be committed. And so you track that and make sure that people are not gaming the system.
Yep. So that's the check and balance,
Yeah.
right?
Chicken balance. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you build too much buffer, then again, you're wasting resources. What we're really trying to do is understand and appreciate the system and how do we make the system work for everybody, all right? Which gets us to Deming's 14 points and the number 1 point. So Deming came up with these 14 points saying, you know, if you can master these, you're going to be doing really, really well. And so they are something I come back and look at in any organization. You could apply it to your own organization, your own project, right? So we'll hit them quickly, and then Paz is going to talk about how she and DPR are using this stuff in real life. So speaking of what we're just talking about, the very first thing Deming talks about is constancy of purpose as the thing that, as his very first point. Now, he makes the point, and others who've studied him, that these 14 points are not in primary order. It's not one comes before another. They all work together. So this is just the way he expressed them. I want to share some of what he says because his words are better than anything I could say on this very quickly. And then we're going to give you copies of this so you can have it. So I put in parentheses, he's talking about constancy of purpose for continuous improvement. He said, Deming suggests a radical new definition of a company's role. Rather than simply making money, its purpose is to stay in business, provide jobs through innovation, research, and constant improvement and maintenance. If a company's main goal is to make money, it will cut corners and reduce quality. If a company's purpose is to create products and services that provide superior value, they will make money and be successful. I hear so often the purpose of our company is to pay the stockholders. It's to make money. All right. So as you listen to these, start thinking about this and how it might apply to you. And we'll be giving examples. All right. Let's see. Okay. So adopt the new philosophy. So what's the new philosophy? Now this may sound a little rough, but there's remember gruff old Deming standing up there lecturing all these people who are stuck in the mud. Said, Americans are too tolerant of poor quality and sullen service. We need a new religion. He doesn't really mean religion. Need a new dedication, new religion in which mistakes and negativism are unacceptable. Right? So that doesn't mean we're going to succeed at that. Okay. All right. Cease dependence on mass inspection. Deming says, American firms typically inspect a product as soon as it comes off the line or at major stages. Defective products are either thrown out or reworked. Both are unnecessarily expensive. In effect, I love this, in effect, the company is paying workers to make defects. Right? The company is paying workers to make defects and then to correct them. Quality comes not from inspection, but from improvement of the process. With instruction, workers can be enlisted in this improvement. Don't award business on price alone. Right? This idea that the way you make money is get the lowest bid rather than getting people who do the best work is something that is really problematic. And when we institutionalize it, and like having government or other contracts that say you must take the lowest bid without looking at how these people work together or the quality of their work, we're probably getting very little value for that. At least that's a danger. Okay, next one. Improve constantly and forever the system of production and service. Again, Deming says if instead of spending all this time on performance reviews of individuals, we got everybody working in the company in whatever system, subsystem, and process they work, focus on how they could improve the performance of that process and those activities, and everybody's contributing and they're making progress, they're going to feel great about what they're doing. And even if one person doesn't perform as well as another person, then at least things become visible because you know what the system's supposed to look like and you help train and improve and so on. Right? Institute training. This comes up twice in this 14. Here he's saying, let me just say what he says. Too often workers have to learn their job from another worker who has never been trained properly. They are forced to follow unintelligible instructions. They can't do their job because nobody tells them how. So that's why I say we've got to do better than that. All right. Institute leadership. He says the job of a supervisor is not to tell people what to do or to punish them, but to lead. Leading consists of helping people do a better job and learning by objective methods who is in need, as the managers learn by objective methods, who's in need of improving their performance. Right? Okay, number 8 is probably one of the most famous. Drive out fear. Many employees are afraid to ask questions or take a position, even when they do not understand what the job is and what is right or wrong. People will continue to do things the wrong way or not do them at all. The economic loss from fear is appalling, he says. It's necessary for better quality and productivity for people to feel secure.
I was annoyed how good this guy was.
Right?
Isn't it?
Right?
If we brought it back to life, he'd be kind of pissed at us.
Yeah.
He'd be like, you haven't gotten it.
I will come back to that.
Yep.
Okay, break down barriers between staff groups. He says often staff areas, groups, and so on are competing with each other, have conflicting goals, and they don't work as a team to solve or foresee problems. Worse, one department's goals may cause trouble for another. We don't have any of that, do we? Right? Next one, eliminate slogans, exhortations, and targets. He wasn't big on big top-down company slogans and stuff, but he did say, while he said those don't help, he said, let people put up their own slogans for their own area and so on. I guess he's just wanted people to think for themselves. Okay? Eliminate numerical quotas. You'd think with statistical process control, you'd want numerical quotas. But he says here, quotas take account only of numbers, not quality or methods. They guarantee inefficiency and high costs without regard for the damage to the company. So he's saying we're focused on the wrong thing, right? Number 12, Remove barriers to pride of workmanship. This really ties with the last one. People are eager to do a good job and distressed when they can't. Too often misguided supervisors, faulty equipment, and defective materials and defective processes stand in the way. And he says, starting the training isn't enough. You have to institute a vigorous program of education and retraining. In other words, it's got to be constant. If you weren't interested in that, you wouldn't be here tonight, I think. And finally, take action to accomplish the transformation. If you have a company and you're trying to go lean, hopefully there are resources and processes and people who are helping you do that, right? So that's 14 points. I'll start passing those out while you do that. So we're going to, the things that I was reading, we're going to give you.
One for each table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you pass this around? Can you pass it to the table behind? All right, so as you guys think about these points, I'm going to give you examples. And after each example, you're going to have a little discussion about which points apply. So obviously, I'm using DPR examples. And so what I'm going to do is show you an example of something we do, a process, our strategies of how we do things. And then you guys are going to tell us how this connects with these 14 points.
Yep, I'm bringing more. Sorry.
There's no more here.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple there. Okay, so
If anybody has any extras.
I give a little example, and then you guys discuss. And then I give another example, and then you guys discuss. That's what we're going to be doing 5 times if we have enough time. Okay? All right. First example is a process that here at DPR we call distinguishing features. So this is something, this is the definition of a distinguishing feature, is identifying an aspect of the project that's unique or more risky, and then make sure you focus on that and you understand what the expectations are, and you transform that into something that's measurable, that you can all agree this is what you want. So for example, here, if you're doing a hospital and you really want to understand how this exam lights need to look in the room, like people go into every single detail and call out and have questions with the architect, with the users, and define what that means. We have a lot of different case studies written about this process. We have over 10 papers that describe this in IGLC, the International Group for Lean Construction. And I want to point out that the first paper on this was, like, one of the co-authors is actually the CEO of DPR, George Pfeffer. So there's, to explain this more, so you get a flavor of how this looks, I have a video for you. So.
People think of quality, they think of aesthetics. We take it a lot further than that. For Banner, it's the functionality of those things and how they come together and how they are eventually going to affect their patients and their public.
When DPR brought forth this concept, it allowed us to sit in a room, engage with architects, engineers, contractors, and really list out what specifically is important.
When they look at their project, what is the thing that they focus on more than anything else? What is the thing that their end users, in this case, the doctors, the nurses, and the patients, what is going to impact them?
To explain why that detail was important, it was a major paradigm shift, and all of a sudden, light bulbs started going off, and everyone really got it. And I normally just don't get that chance to connect with people. What's changed for me, most specifically on this project, is identifying the distinguishing features of work, got to get my direct input for what I feel is important for the way we deliver care. And it's that kind of care, compassion, collaboration that really helped us connect to get the appropriate degree of input. I'm going to need to see that kind of communication and collaboration on all my other projects going forward.
Patient care is the reason that we're here building this building. We're here to deliver a product that at the end of the day makes a difference in the community and makes a difference to the patients that will fill this building.
So I hope you guys got a flavor of it. So on your tables, discuss a little bit of which Deming points these examples shows. gonna give you. Okay, anybody wants to share?
Well, let's
What was
get
your
everybody back first.
It's however many you think it applies. It's all right. Which one applies? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We're going to do this several times, so you'll
Yeah.
have to allow us to bring you back so we can talk.
All right. Who wants to share first? Which principles apply, in your opinion? Or points? They're not new.
Number 9, I think the data production processes forces different staff areas to work together and define what their expectations are instead of having their own in their head.
Yes.
When they see it at the end, it's strong. So bringing people together early on before install.
Yes, absolutely agree. And Erin is one of our superstars at running this process. So, absolutely. Yes. Okay. What else? What other points?
We say number 5, to improve confidence for every system. The detail may be on the drawing, but nobody really knows why it's there. We ask.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe we can improve upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for me, it really, the constancy of purpose too on this project, like when you know what is it that you're doing and why does it matter, right? It's very special. This process forces you to think about that, right? So that to me, it's also important. Any other points?
I think number 1, because I think it's the main point of the video. Based on the video, it's not just build like the house or just a room for the patients, but it's the purpose of that room actually to help the nurse and so on.
Right, and how the patient is going to be taken care of, right?
They had a purpose for the project. They were there to provide patient care, not just protocol.
Right. And a lot of times in projects we have to do that, right? You need to create a purpose for it, right? More beyond like who's coming to work from whoever company, right?
It just emphasizes the psychology piece.
Right.
Intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
I've been a part of projects like that. I was more motivated by we're going to build a facility that takes care of sick children than anything else.
Right. Yeah. Great. Okay. Ready for the next one? Okay. So this is our approach for training for quality. So this is some of the things that we do. So we do have different levels of engaging people. So when you're just a new hire or you're new in the project, you're gonna see something very short that's like a 10-minute short of what quality means at DPR and some of the language that we use, because not everybody's familiar with distinguishing features or measurable acceptance criteria, those things. And then we make sure we do this on different languages so people can understand it on their own language, and the same thing for people in the field. And then we have another training which is called Quality at Our Core, which is self-paced, and it's 3 hours and goes through the project, the best practices that we have. So it's more process-oriented on different phases of the project. So you start with pursuit, pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. And then we have another training that's 9 hours and there is live, and that's more focused on behaviors and in leadership and how, what's my role within quality and what I am supposed to do here, regardless of your role at DPR. And then the last level is coaching. So, okay, when people need more support and I don't know how to do this process, and then we need to go to a project to help them. So I want to explain a little bit more about the second to last level, building quality builders, because I think that has a lot more intention on the behaviors and what we want to achieve. So we start with, we do this in around 8 weeks, but it's 4 weeks of different topics. We first start explaining why quality has a behavioral component. Like, why do I have to care? What do I have to do here? And then we talk about language and things like you have to pay attention, like when like differentiating, for example, facts from stories. When you're looking at concrete, you know, like you still have to understand language differences. And then we talk about how people apply our approach. And then at week 4, they have to make an action plan. And then 4 weeks later, we follow up. This is another way of showing this. And the other thing that we do is we do a flipped classroom approach. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So we give people all the content first, and then they have to watch different videos. And in each week, they write down what answers to these questions. We make them reflect. And then when we meet in person, we meet for an hour, but they did an hour of pre-work before. So in the meeting, what we do is we talk about how this applies to their job and what they can do. And then we do different exercises. And then we wait for 4 weeks, and then we meet again to see what they did with their commitments. And they bring ideas and examples of things that they do. And this is not just for quality people, this is for everybody at DPR. And these are our latest stats on who has been trained and who. So we hit 1,000 people, and you can see here who these people are, mostly project managers, then superintendents, engineers, and other people. And it's also across different regions. This is something that we use to motivate different regions to get on board, and nobody wants to be the one with least graduates. So, okay, so that's our training strategy. Which points apply here?
4 or 5 minutes, folks.
Apply here.
Number 6 for sure.
Number 6 for sure, that's a no-brainer, right? Institute training, yeah, that's the point of this, right? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Which one?
6 and 13?
Yeah, 13, yes. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
You've got number 7, leadership, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key points, right? We want to show people that they have agency, right? They can do things, right? Yeah. Yeah, the other thing that is really cool is that we do these trainings with mixed roles, you know, so people show up and they talk about quality from different perspectives, and that's helpful in breaking down barriers too between the stuff.
Yeah, we put out 14, take an action.
Yes.
To get that little action planning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, anything else? 3?
Just one, oh, yeah.
Cease dependence on mass inspection.
Yeah, it's a training on quality, so you're trying to have quality first before.
Yeah.
Do real work.
Yeah.
Or have defects.
Yeah, that's true, right? Yeah, a lot of people think that quality is like something that you do after the work is done, right? And that's not true, right? We don't want that. We don't want anybody to think that. Yep. All right.
I just wanted to point out, when I first saw these 14 points, I was confused by the fact that it says institute training, and then he goes back to education and retraining. And what's the difference between training and education? And my take on it now is that when he's talking about training, he's talking about like on-the-job training, how to do the job, what the policies and procedures are, whatever it is that's very much in the present kind of training, getting people's skills up to be able to do stuff. But then he's going beyond that and saying, now we need to build in education. We need to be learning at a more profound level. And as we do that and we expand our horizons and we understand things more, what do we have to do? We have to do retraining. So the idea that as leaders, as senior people in organizations, we have to have some means of doing this if we're going to actually help the performance go up.
Great. All right. Thank you. Let's do another. This is a quick one. This is a project team that decided to do craft coordination lunches and feedbacks. So they have this stickers that they decided to give away there. Good discussion there. What do you think about that? And then they have also a suggestion and recognition box, so people can take these papers and say, like, I mean, this person did something good today, or I actually want to change things. I need this or that for my job. And I mean, obviously, for this to work, the thing that has to happen is that somebody has to read those things and do something about it, right? Otherwise, like, it doesn't work. So in this project, they did a good job, and they had someone that was reading this and doing changes. This is another project example where they decided to do a recognition for craft, and they did more specific criteria of how they wanted to recognize people, and they wanted to recognize people. This is craft for speaking up for quality, so saying there's a mistake here, there's something that's not right, for excellence in craftsmanship, so they did something well, and for going above and beyond, like asking for things, like doing, really trying to figure out what it means to be right. Okay, so those are the two project examples, and now you guys know the drill. What points apply here?
Number 9.
Number 8, yes, drive out fear, right? That's one of the, actually, this is super important, because one of the things that the purpose of that recognition program, especially the speaking out for quality, it's about driving out fear, right? We want people to feel recognized for saying there's a mistake. You know, that's not something that we can take for granted in this industry.
Making a mistake or saying, I don't know what you want.
Right.
I don't know how to do this.
Right. Yeah.
We call it psychological safety. It's,
Exactly. Yeah.
It is
exactly.
engagement from at the worker.
Yeah. That's actually one of the processes that Sulin designed. So the webinar on psychological safety. That's coming. Okay, what else?
Number 5.
Mm-hmm. Number 5. Improve constantly.
Improve.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have ideas how you're gonna keep going. Okay.
Talk a little bit about 7, just around psychological safety, and Jack stole our word there, but it's all right.
Yeah.
A little bit about leadership, right? It's,
yeah.
And going back to the suggestion box, is that it takes leadership to then go and institute that change, not just to read a suggestion box and go, wow, we should do that at some point, but actually be a leader and actually institute change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which can go both ways, right? If you don't do it, it's like terrible. And yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Number 12.
12? Yeah.
I mean, you're promoting people to be proud of their workmanship in various ways. Oh.
Right. Yeah, you want to reinforce behaviors that they want, that they can ask for what they need. They can, yeah. So remove barriers. Absolutely. People hate rework, hate being inefficient, hate waiting for stuff, right? So you want to remove those barriers. Okay, ready? You have energy for more? Yes? Okay, good. Okay. This is an example where we actually had rework. You know, we had a project where there were certain disconnections between the design team, trade partners, our team doing QC. Ever heard that? Never happened to you, right? Right? So the problem was that they didn't have a single source of truth. So there was obviously some patches going on, some things that, we realized this outlet doesn't have to be here, has to be somewhere else. And then you have to go back and open the wall, change things, and that's obviously painful, right? So what happened? The superintendent here, Erin, decided, well, this is unacceptable. I don't want this to happen in any of my projects afterwards. So she and the team developed a pilot. See somebody there that maybe your project? And what they did is to actually create another level of detail for the craft with all the information, and decided to put it in a place where they could access it everywhere, right? So the information was organized by room, and they had these QR codes that people can actually go see and understand what's the latest and greatest. So there's obviously more effort up front, more coordination, so the detail and the design is in the field. So now this is our standard. That's part of how we do work, and so we can find QR codes in each room, and that's one way of communicating expectations to the field. There's other ways, like putting a board with what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and you can find that in project, or sometimes people actually put straight the agreement of the distinguishing features conversations, and they just paste it on the field, or they have QR codes, okay? All right. What applies here? All right, back then, you guys are still discussing. Which one? Which point do you think it applies here?
We're talking about it here, but the last one was number 2.
Number 2? Adopt the new philosophy? Yeah, okay, so you, like, in what sense?
The approach to looking at drawings and looking for defects earlier, more proactive about it. And then we're talking about somebody has to go through the efforts of printing all these QR codes.
Yeah.
If there's a design change, printing maybe a different QR code, keeping them up to date.
Yeah. So it's not accepting like, oh, okay, wherever, this is the information we have, wherever, right? It's someone is taking leadership for it to be accurate, right?
5, improving the system.
Yep. Yeah, you're improving the system. Yeah, there's a story of continuous improvement here, right? On like we're having rework, and then somebody decided to do something about it. Okay, what else? 7, leadership. Yes.
The leadership from Aaron to actually call that out and try and do something about it and get it team together.
Yep. Yeah. And the team that supported her, right? Because it wasn't just her, right? It was other people coordinating, right? Okay. How about 12? For me, 12, that one, it's really important, because at the end, that's the whole point, right? You have to remove barriers so craft can have the information they need. Okay. Any other one?
I think ceasing the defense on mass inspection, ensuring that the people who are building have the right information and are empowered with the right information versus just relying on a small army of people who have that protected information to themselves. And I think this is a good example of just, finding what the solution is that you can implement today to make things a little bit better. Even if there's a perfect solution waiting sometime in the future, this is a solution that we can do today to make things better.
Yeah.
Not waiting for the perfect solution to do one that can make it a little better and can scale, right? QR codes scale a lot better than people.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Thank you. All right. Last idea. And then I promise I'd let you I'd let you rest a little bit. So this is a more like a strategy and idea that comes, it's from this book called The Right Kind of Wrong. And it's actually a very interesting book, and it's from Amy Edmondson. Amy Edmondson is famous because she coined or made famous the term psychological safety. But this is her latest book, and she talks about different kinds of failure. And I thought that concept was really, really important to construction and to quality, and we don't really make the distinction between different types of failures. And it turns out that we have to approach failures differently depending on what kind they are. So she categorized it into 3 types of failures. So basic failure is we made a mistake. There's a human error, like somebody was saying, like, oh, we didn't have the right starting point to do the layout, the right control point. That's something that we know how to do. There's nothing new there, but somebody can make a mistake, right? So how do you fix that thing? Well, that can be training, that can be right information, that can be different things. But it's more straightforward. Then complex failure is when you have some uncertainty. You may not control everything, right? You have tolerances, for example, from different materials that have to come together, and then like, oh, things do not match, right? And whose fault is or how to fix this is not obvious, right? It's more a complex system, so you have to do certain. You need to manage that type of risk differently, that type of failure differently. And then the final one, this one you need to do more digging to understand root causes and understand like why it happened, so you can change systems so those things don't happen again, right? But it takes more effort. And then the third type of failure is when we actually, there's no way you're gonna get it right. Like you have so much uncertainty, the uncertainty is so high, you have never used this material, you have never used this type of building the building or anything, like it's new. Like there's just literally no way you can get it right the first time. So you have to plan for it and learn for it in a way that is intelligent, meaning you're not spending all your money testing this, right? So you're making a mock-up, for example, but also you're letting enough time to make changes if the mock-up is not the right thing, right? If it's a new type of material. So I thought that it was really, really interesting because we don't always make the distinction, and also she has like a sort of a scale of what's blameworthy, when you're like if there's a failure and it was a sabotage, obviously that's terrible. Like you shouldn't like accept that, right? But if it's experimentation under a very uncertain condition and you fail, that should be celebrated. So it's really changing the paradigm of what failure means. And in order to actually allow for intelligent failure, you have to recognize that you're going to do an intelligent failure, so you're planning for it. So that means it's new territory, it's an opportunity-driven, you're still going to do some research, you're going to inform from previous knowledge, you're going to make it as small as possible, so you limit your risk, and bonus, you're going to learn from it. And then you also need to reframe your like humans are not made for accepting failure, embracing failure. So you need to reframe your relationship with failure, saying, okay, I'm gonna be failing and it's okay. And then the third one is you need to actually be in an environment of psychological safety. So when do we have that in construction? Like all those three things, like that we are planning to fail and learn from it, it's really rare. So to me, I think that you only can have that when you have a very collaborative project where you have everybody on board and you actually have time to do that, okay? And you plan for it, time and resources to fail. All right, I let you thinking. Last one. If we do that, if we plan for an intelligent failure, what points would we be using? All right, last one. What points do you think apply here when we plan to do an intelligent failure? One.
Has to be a purpose statement, a long failure.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to be, you do it for a good purpose, right? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe like innovate, right? 8?
Guys, can you join us? Thanks.
Yeah, 8. You want to say something else about 8?
That's kind of like the main thing. Fear of striving for better quality, or striving for doing better.
Right. Drive out the fear. Yeah, allowing for failure, knowing like you're gonna fail. Right? Sounds weird, but every time, if you think about it, if you want to try something new, like if you want to learn a new sport, you need to be willing to fail, right? There's no way you're gonna learn a new sport if you don't try it first, right? All right, something else?
I think one of the interesting things that came up at our table was about in our industry, failure can have very serious consequences. So setting up a system and structure and using the tools and technology we have to experiment without in a safe environment.
Right. Yeah.
Taking advantage of what we can do nowadays that doesn't require us to put people at risk and fail safely.
Pretty good point. Yeah.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Good forensics allow for good training.
Unfortunately,
they do.
Yep.
True.
And also number 12. We have sometimes we have defective processes where we don't test things out enough, and we just hope it's going to work out.
Right.
So having a system where it can fail, but we
Right.
learn before we actually build it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about that one exactly, that how we frame the challenge is so important. You know, we're talking about we'll have failures. We also, if we talk about, well, we want to find out where the system fails, not where we failed, or where the design fails, because we want to be able to go out and build this just beautifully, and we want to be able to take pride. So sometimes just simply reframing things in a positive way really opens the door.
All right, great. So we are at the end of the content. So takeaways. Do you want? Should we show ours?
Oh yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, here we wanted to share our own, and I want to tell a little quick story beforehand. So I did have you were talking about, wow, this guy Deming. You know, a little jealous. How does the one guy get so bright? And you'd think he'd feel pretty good about all this stuff he developed, right? You know, he came up with all this brilliant stuff. Great guy. And I was watching him in all these videos, but I didn't get much of a chance to ever actually meet him or hear him in person. So got to be working at Ford, got to be Christmas time, and I was heading back to Wisconsin where I grew up to go to my mother's house for Christmas. Land in Minneapolis, and I get up and walk to the front door, and there's Deming and his assistant that he always traveled with standing at the door. And he's about 4 or 5 inches taller than I am, and unmistakable. And I'm sure they might have been waiting for a chair or somebody to escort him or something like that. And so being the totally calm and collected guy I am, I said, "Oh my God, Dr. Deming, Dr. Deming." Yes. Wow, I'm so glad to see you. I've been watching these videos of you for months in the Ford area. I'm working on this concept to customer project. And I just got to tell you that I got to thank you for all that you've done. I mean, you have changed so much. Deming looks at me, he says, and this, for any of you who are struggling and feeling like we're not making enough progress with Lean, looked at me and said, "I don't think I've done a damn thing. I don't think I've changed anything," he said. And I said, "Oh, Dr. Deming, you've changed me. I think differently because of you. You've changed me." He looked at me in the eye and he said, "Good, that's one." All right, so we thought about takeaways. So my thinking here is that everything that Deming came up with, if it was true, it's true. You know, and so that means it's not irrelevant. It's not like when we've gone to lean that all of the lean is a method, a strategy for improving quality like this. We're still all about producing value, which is what we are now saying in lean. We're trying to produce value that pleases and delights the customer. Right? And lean is an operational strategy within total quality management. And now, as we've been struggling to do lean, we're doing the same thing Dr. Deming did. We're expanding our definition of lean to say, well, it's respect for people, and it's communication, and it's process improvement, and it's, you know, you read Likert, it's more simple. There's a few distinct things that made lean lean in the Japanese. And we shouldn't lose those things. But it comes from this TQM. And there's a whole lot of really cool stuff to learn, is the last thing I'd like to leave you with. I have been reading his books for a while, and you can see this one's even worse. I mean, look. So I get through, and in between all these bookmarks are lots and lots of underlining and highlighting and notes and stuff. I found it one of those really rich things that almost every page there was something I'm going, oh man, why didn't I think of that? So I want to invite you, and this is just two of the books, a lot of videos. You can get to hear what he sounds like and his very distinct way of speaking. If you do that first, when you read the books, because a lot of them are transcriptions of his lectures, you'll hear his voice because the cadence and everything in the writing is just the way he spoke, which is really kind of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, plus 1 week, everything he said, that's definitely my takeaway. But I mean, to me, I mean, I work in quality and specifically on culture of quality. And to me, like the intention of all the practices that we create, all the processes, I mean, that's what's relevant. And you have to really be very intentional to share why you're doing what you're doing. To me, that's very important. And obviously, as you guys said, and I think you guys are going to remember these 14 points after you leave this room, those are very relevant still, right? And very practical. They are doable. There are things we can do, and there's so many opportunities of things we can keep doing. So I think there's still a lot of mindset shift to do in the construction industry. And then the other thing that it's really cool for me is this idea of psychological safety, that now it's super like, I don't know, people talk about it a lot. It's very well connected with what Deming is trying to do, and it's key for improving any system, right? Obviously for improving quality in what we do. So that's our takeaways. So we want to hear from you. What are your takeaways? Or questions or comments?
Data is not knowledge.
Good. Not knowledge, and knowledge is not wisdom, right? Okay.
Couldn't hear that.
Okay, types of failure.
If you just repeat, I'll try to keep up.
Types of failure.
Oh, different types of failure was. Okay, I set down my pen somewhere.
Training is critical.
Training.
I only did a few lean events, but I leave the same takeaway every time. We need to train.
Yes. Training.
Oh, and
yes.
I got a bum marker there.
Okay, what else?
Driving out the fear. I think too many times and too often, people are afraid to speak up. I mean, even just in here, you know, it's a little quiet sometimes, but just acknowledging that, you know, there's, you know, just that old saying, you know, there's no dumb question.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's here to learn, and just to embrace that, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
We need to encourage intrinsic joy in our work. Encourage intrinsic joy in our work versus, well, there's some people who do enjoy the extrinsic value, and we can't discount that either.
Okay. Anything else?
Humans haven't evolved much in 100 years.
Yeah, we could use the same ideas, right? Yeah. Well, our consciousness has not evolved much as fast as our technology. Okay, thank you so much. This has been super fun. Yeah, thanks for coming. We got a lot of people, a lot of good discussion. Hopefully, this is the plus and delta, so you can keep adding pluses or deltas for our next sessions next year.
Felipe, we will send out the slides, and that handout of the 14 points is available as well. There's something called the Deming Institute. You can just Google it and get there in an instant, and they have a lot of videos and stuff, or you can just go to YouTube and say Deming Lectures, and you'll get Deming Lectures. So.
Yeah.
All right, we sure appreciate all the wonderful energy in this. Yes?
Did he ever improve the principles himself?
I'm sorry?
Like, did he ever change or improve his principles himself?
Oh, I think he tweaked them for a while, but these are all coming from pretty much towards the end of his career, a synopsis of, in other words, what people were doing is trying to capture from his lectures and from his workshops. He ended up, after he retired from MIT, doing workshops and consulting. And so people tried to capture as many of those things, transcribe them, then turn them into books. So I'm sure he was always questioning this stuff, but some of it, sometimes when you get it right, you got it right. All right.
All right.
Thank you, and I want to thank Paz. It was, what a joy to work with her, I tell you, really great.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone that helped DPR.